All right, friends, we are doing another webinar in our series of webinars for the month of October for the Harvard Kennedy School application. There is so much to cover here. We're not just talking about your resume. We're talking about, 2 core essays. We're talking about 3 shorter essays. We're talking about optional statements, potential reapplicant statements, potential English language statements. We're talking about bio statements, background statements. I mean, there's a ton to cover for the Kennedy School. So today we're going to be covering the 2 core essays. Next week, we're going to be covering the 3 shorter essays. The following week, we're going to be covering letters of recommendation and resumes. And then I think we're going to be doing an AMA, kind of like Ask Me Anything, rapid fire questions at the end of October so that you guys have that full month of November to hyper focus on your application and really knock it out. So my goal is to do everything I can to get you guys on an even playing field with the Kennedy School application, which in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of a lot of people, is possibly one of the most onerous, difficult, laborious applications out there for any kind of public policy program. So let's get busy. We got 30 minutes. I want to go through the main core essays, and then I want to leave some questions and answers. So why do I feel like I'm qualified to deliver this talk today? Thankfully, I went to some top schools. I'm a lawyer by background. And then I went to the Kennedy School myself in 2016, became a fellow and got a full ride scholarship from the Center of Public Leadership through the ELI Fellowship. I was then on the selection committee for the ELI for 2 years. And then I have been and still am on the Alumni Council for the Center for Public Leadership. So still very much have my finger on the pulse with the Kennedy School and was the co-chair for the last 2 years of the Alumni Council. So very much still plugged into the university. A lot of the information that we're going to be covering comes from our admissions mastery guide, which you can see right here. It's the only book out there. We're in the 2nd edition of this book, which we just recently released, that covers all the newest changes to the Kennedy School application process. So please make sure to check that out. I will show you guys the website at the end of this conversation, but feel free to ask any questions, anything that you guys need as we go through this process. All right, so let's quickly give a scan of the different essays and parts of the application. I mentioned a bunch of them at the beginning, rapid fire. Obviously, there's several applications. There's the mid-career program, the MPA2, the MPP, and the MPA-ID, right? And each one has their own requirements. Some of them are similar, some of them are not. So we're covering, there's a background statement, a bio statement. These are kind of difficult year on year. Sometimes they change. It's very basic. There's very nuanced differences between the two. But the reality is they're buried in the application when you open it up and start filling it out. So don't forget about those. You want to make sure that you don't wing them. You've got the career goals essay. This is for the mid-careers. The converse of the career goals essay is going to be the MPP essay for MPPs, or international development essay for the international development, or the 2-year MPA essay for the career goals for the MPA2. You've got your professional contribution essay, which typically is like a public policy essay, which is also the leadership experience essay, which I think is a JFK essay. So that's kind of the conversion of those for the different programs. Those are all your core essays. And then you've got your not supplemental, but your shorter essays, which are the perspectives, personal history, and adversity, which are almost across all programs. As you can see, personal history there, perspectives there. The only ones are the cool cats from the MPID, because these guys are so in the books. They really want to hyper focus on making sure that they're attracting the smartest and brightest out there. So they skip those essays there. And they focus on other core essays. So let's see what they've got. They've got the bio on that. Yep, we got that. The international development essay, which is a career goals, leadership essay, which is kind of like your professional contribution, optional essay, if applicable, and a personal history essay. And then they've got this public policy essay as well, which I think is kind of like, I think it's more, how do I say, substantive. It's less, it's more hard skills than soft skills. What I mean by that, it's less, it's more substantive and less personal. Let's put it that way. All right. Optional statements, we can also cover that. If you guys have any questions on that, let's ask it today, or you can ask in the AMA at the end of the month. We can talk about that and when you need to use it. And next week, as I said, we'll be covering the diversity essay, perspectives essay, and personal history essay. But today we're going to be covering from the mid-career perspective, the professional contribution essay and the career goals essay. But I want you to also think about how it could be tweaked for the other programs. Feel free to ask me how you can do that as well. All right, guys, let's jump straight into it if there's no questions. What we created at Right Track Admissions is this process of story crafting, the art of the story. Now, in the guidebook, I have a whole chapter just dedicated to this, where I break down each one of these components into their core structure so that you know how to write a good story. The reality is, writing a good story is so mission critical, not only to your application, but to almost anything that you do in the real world, right? Whether it's interviewing for jobs, interviewing for schools, being with friends, being with loved ones, you're all about how you tell a story, how you express yourself. It's so fundamentally important. And what I've really kind of surfaced here for you is how you can think about this process and break it down into small compartments so that you can finally have that story success and finalize your essay. Now, for the purposes of today, and given the time crunch involved, we're not going to spend too much time on each component. We're going to kind of skip a couple of them and just focus on some of the core ones. But again, if you get the guidebook, it's going to be in there. Obviously, if you work with us, this is what we use to really kind of unearth and find your story, because literally, if you canvas 100 people applying to the Kennedy School, probably, I would say, 70% of them will say, how to put their story together is the most difficult part for them in the application process. Okay. So let's go back. So story crafting, surface your values, seek life happenings. If you're coming to me right now and you're saying, Hamada, I'm interested in applying to the Kennedy School this year, you're not going to have too much time to story create. Right? This is for people who are applying in a year or 2 or 3 and want to design their profile, design their narrative to kind of reverse engineer the questions for the Kennedy School, fill in the gaps they're missing in their lives so that they really can become outstanding candidates for the Kennedy School, right? Okay, so in this case, let's quickly jump into the second phase of it, which is storyboarding. Brain dumping. I want you to kind of sit down and write for me top 10 learning moments, personal challenges, life accomplishments, and dump it onto some kind of canvas, some kind of paper, something that basically allows me to better understand, or allows you to better understand, what is the totality of everything that makes you unique and qualified for the Kennedy School. And when you're doing that, ask yourself, what are my strengths, weaknesses, talents, right? What are the things that you can lean on? What are your superpowers? What are the things that distinguishes you, right? What things make you stand out, not just as a human, not as a professional, not just as a student, but really as an applicant to the Kennedy School as well. What are your interests? What are your hobbies? And like we said, what are your superpowers? Make those things top of mind, because they'll help you put things down on paper in a methodical way. So it's not kind of like a bazillion crazy thoughts, but they start to kind of come together into a cohesive whole. Think about, what are your diverse viewpoints? What do you believe in? What are core to you? Super important, because that's what we can use to kind of think about your values, think about your storyline, think about the experiences, because there's a certain formula to this, which in my mind looks something like this. I'm going to deviate for 2 seconds. Think about it this way. I recently thought about this, to be honest with you guys. This is why it's not here on the slides, but it somehow started to coalesce, it started to crystallize in my head. Think about surfacing an obsession, a passion that you have, okay? Start developing experiences around that passion. How do you play up? How do you unearth? How do you ignite? How do you engage that passion? Through lived experiences, things that you do. Then start thinking about what kind of outcomes can come about from those experiences that really highlight those passions. What kind of impact comes from that? Then I want you to start thinking about how you can document those outcomes, those experiences, and those passions. Document them. Then once you've done that action, that exercise, then you can start putting it together into a story. And I'm going to show you how you can do that today. But this is a really good way. In fact, I'm going to probably write it here next time I give this talk, because I really feel like that really helped me crystallize things in a certain way. I've got a passion. So what? What do I do with it? I then start building lived experiences based on that passion. I just don't think about it. I do something about it. So for me, my passion, I know this is going to sound bananas, and I'm still trying to get to it. So if you can think of how I can think about this, I would love it to hear from you. I don't know if you can say a passion of mine is sheer curiosity, but suffice it that curiosity has manifested into travel. I know it sounds so cliche, but it really has. So if I say my obsession is traveling, I really mean it's an obsession, because I'm trying to see every country in the world. Those who know me know that I've been trying to do this. Through that obsession, how am I getting the experiences? I'm traveling to the different places. What kind of outcomes am I getting? I'm taking those experiences and traveling there and creating vlogs and blogs and even podcasts to talk about my experiences traveling as someone who couldn't travel because I had limitations in terms of my ability to travel. So that would be not just the experience, but the impact is creating those things and then watching that impact, watching those artifacts I'm creating thrown into the real world. And then you watch people comment on in social media. I really enjoyed this. This is really interesting. Can you tell me more about this? Where can I travel to this? You inspired me to go to these places. So you get a little bit of impact and you see it. It's actually tangible. And then from that outcome that you get, in my experience, I had to produce the exhibit or the artifact to then go back and see the outcome. But some people have the experience, have an outcome, then grab that outcome, put it into something that's tangible. And then once you create all of that, then you can write stories about it. And I did. I recently applied to a leadership program where they said, write something that you haven't included in your application about you that tells more about you. And I actually wrote that whole thing as part of a storyline to answer that question, okay, about who I am. And it really kind of shows independent thinking, curiosity, the idea of being compassionate, by being open-minded, by being committed to this goal that I've been doing for 25 years. So this is kind of an example of how you kind of start unearthing these ideas and putting it down on paper, okay? Now, once you've done that, I want you to kind of think about how you structure this as a story. And the best way to do this, guys, is think about it as in the traditional story arc. I'm sure every one of you knows what this is, because every movie has this almost. It starts off with an action sequence. You start to develop the background of the character. You start developing the storyline. You start developing the direction of which way this is going to go. Then you start to understand the guide that's going to come in here and help facilitate a decision has to be made. That then comes in some Dos machina that comes in and changes everything for you, right? And then you bring the story back. You know, it's funny. I just watched a movie. It was called One Battle After Another. And it actually fits exactly. There's an action sequence in the beginning. Then you start to learn about the main characters. Then you learn from the main characters the storyline of where they're going to go. Then there's an major inflection point. Then it fast forwards to 16 years later. And then they start to discover that they want to go in a different direction. And then it brings it back to the finale after the closure of the whole movie, right? And this is kind of how you want to start thinking about it. The tension levels and then the time sequence, beginning, middle, and end. Okay, guys? I've used this thousands of times for applicants over the years, and it's really, really, really bulletproof for personal statements, for law school, graduate school, you name it, right? And obviously I used it when I applied to the Kennedy School and it worked out for me. Now, the reason I have Yoda here is because he is the guide for the movie Star Wars, as in after the Jedi makes a decision to whether it be Luke Skywalker or to be a Jedi, he makes that decision to be a Jedi, and the guide guides him through it, which is Yoda. And in this case, the guide will be HKS to get you to where you want to go. All right, guys, any questions on this, please post in the comments below. I'm in real time right now. Ask away, please ask away. I love answering questions. I'd much rather have you in a room where we can talk together and make this interactive. All right. Career goals essay, possibly one of the most difficult. Okay. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to flip the script. I'm going to go to professional contribution first, because I feel like if there was an order, it comes to professional contribution because that happened already. And then the career goals is what you want to do. So let's start in your mind, even when you plan this out, let's start thinking about your professional contribution, or like we discussed, your JFK essay or whatever it is. I think that's what it would be. Yeah, your JFK essay and so forth. Then your MPP essay, or in this case, your professional contribution, then your career goals. So here it goes. The Harvard Kennedy School motto, echoing the president for whom the school is named, ask what you can do. Please share with the admissions committee how you have created positive change thus far in your most substantial professional leadership and or public service role. Okay, super important. They're giving you two options: professional leadership, public service. Okay, you've got 500 words. So these are your 500 soldiers, and we've got to line them up in terms of, I don't even know what you call them, regiments and battalions, like in words and sentences, in paragraphs, and the whole flow. You got to think about it super, super, super strategically. Okay, and here is how you would think about it in terms of structure. It's not exactly like this line, because this just gives you a general gist of how you would create your story narrative, but it's basically giving it to you in some semblance of it. These two are the same. This is the same. These two slightly change. Okay, so we can do that. Let me take a quick question from Anna. If my most substantial contribution was a team effort, how can I ensure I properly highlight my individual role while still acknowledging the team? Anna, crushing it with a fantastic question, because in this case, you don't want to be writing about you as a tangential actor. They are asking, please share the admissions how you, not how you have been part of creating positive change, but how you have created positive change. So it has to come from you. So if you're part of a team, great. You want that humility. You want that idea of talking about what you learned from working as a team, but you've got to flex. You've got to showcase what you did, what you learned, what you contributed, how you led, how you were challenged, how you even stepped back as a leader and allowed other people to progress so that you could essentially have that experience elevated for others and ensure that total experience was a success, because maybe you didn't have it in you. And that may be your most substantial experience. And I'll give you an example. I'll give you a small example. I recently, again, wrote this essay, not this exact one, but something similar for a leadership program, where they asked, what challenge did you face and like a substantial leadership experience, where I talked about how I was playing a supportive role, how I finally had the opportunity to move from the supportive role to a leadership role, and how once I started, I had all these great plans, grandiose plans to crush it. And I put those wheels into motion, and these extraneous factors started coming in and changed the way I would have wanted to lead, which required that I could not be a visionary leader. I had to be a caretaking leader to prepare the turf for the next leader, not that I could have the flex to do all kinds of great things that I wanted to do. And so in this case, the substance that came from it is that I prepared the grounds for the next leader to take off and take the organization to the next level. So in fact, what I tried to do through the essay is show the humility that I couldn't have all the flex I wanted. I couldn't do all the great things I wanted. I could only stand back and prepare. So you can do that. You can talk about that. It doesn't have to be just you waving the flag and getting the trophy. It could be about preparing the organization for the next major move that you are able to do, and you have to be a caretaker, right? But giving you a small example. And here you'll see, you want to start it off with an attention grabber. You only have 500 words. 500 words. You don't have a ton of space. It's not 750. It's not 1,000. It's 500 words, essentially one page, about 4 paragraphs or so. In here, I divided into 5, but about 4 or 5 sections. So the attention grabber could be a dialogue, which most likely will be the case, an action sequence, a statistic. Usually, sometimes people put quotes, but you want to be careful of the clichéness. I swear, if anybody writes anything about MLK or Gandhi, I mean, you can only imagine how many times they've heard that at HKS, or obviously Kennedy. But you want to grab their attention, draw them in, and then with one sentence kind of show the admissions committee where you're going with this, okay? Then you want to go into B, background in this case, right? Which you're going to then talk about a little bit about your role, who you are, and how you just kind of teeing up slowly that contribution, that big kahuna, the big thing that you're going to show with that positive contribution, right? So then the background is you're slowly kind of teasing it out in terms of who you are, the values you have, and why you got yourself to get into the situation to do that contribution. Then bam, you nail them with that contribution. And you want it to be in some way, you could have a negative contribution that turned positive or a complete positive contribution, right? But this is the crux of the essay. This would be something like 50 words. This would be about 50, 60, 70 words. This would be about 150 words. This would be about 100 words. And this would be whatever the remaining is. I can't do the math, right? So this would be about the crux of the essay. But then you want to have this opportunity to talk about the learning lesson, good or bad, right? Whatever it was. And from this experience, I learned 1, 2, 3, 4 that allowed me to be better at 5, 6, 7, 8. But it also showed me certain deficiencies in that I had skill gaps in 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever it is. And those are the skill gaps I really hope. And then you put into the conclusion a little bit, you can you could even put in a learning lesson, which I hope to be able to improve and rectify once I go to HKS. The conclusion that would say, solve whatever was in the attention grabber, bring the whole story back full circle, right? And saying, you know, that crazy sequence or whatever it was, this is what happened. This is how we improved from it. Okay. I'll give you guys this pro tip down here. Break down 1 to 2 key contributions. I wouldn't give like 50 contributions. It's really saying here, share with the admissions how you have created a contribution. Please share with the admissions how you have created positive change thus far in your most substantial professional leadership and or personal role. Now, this could be a role, which could be, I'm a CEO, and then there's 50 different contributions that you've done. But really, they don't want that. They want your most. Like, focus on 1 or 2. Don't throw everything at them and hope one of them sticks, right? So I would focus on 1 or 2, connect each one. I love it if you could put a challenge that you faced to show the gravity of what you had to overcome to have that achievement, the action taken, and the positive change outcome that resulted from your leadership, okay? So that's a professional contribution. Any questions, please post them below. Let's jump to the career goals, because now you see when you go into the learning opportunity, you kind of also want to say how the Kennedy School tangentially, very slightly in a couple of words, is connected to this contribution. Or you can even say, given what I've done, I want to do so much more at the highest level. And to do that, I really want to go to the Kennedy School to propel me, to add jet fuel, to supercharge my ambitions. All right? Sorry. All right, here we go. Career goals. Again, I'm just doing the mid-career one for you guys, but you know that this is the same similar essay almost across the board. Submit a statement that discusses your career goals as well as the factors. So let's underline it. We've got discuss your career goals, 1, as well as the factors that led you to select the mid-career program, 2, as the means of furthering your professional goals. Be as specific as possible. Describe your expected course of study. 3, will enable you to build on your prior professional experiences. 4, and achieve those goals. 5. So you've got these 5 core things that they're asking for in this essay. There's a lot going on. We only got 500 words. Let's begin. We've got the attention grabber, very small, just enough, just to kind of get them excited, as opposed to writing, my goals are. Do not do that. Start off with something that at least excites them, gets them, excited, but be very mindful of the fact that you have very, very little words for this essay, very little. Okay. So you kind of pull them in, give a little bit of background of kind of some of the work that you've been doing. And then basically here you drop kind of your career goals, right? A little bit, sorry. So you're giving, you're grabbing their attention a little bit. You're giving a little bit of background of kind of, again, feeding into what you already have in terms of whatever you've kind of described in the professional experience a little bit, as well as not trying to be too redundant with the other essays. Then you talk about your career path. All of this, guys, all of this shouldn't be more than 125 words for these 3 parts. Very small. This direction, D direction, is where you go into the goals. This is where you want to go. This is what you want to do. This is probably about 150 words right here. So if this is about 125 words, this is about 150 words right here. Okay? And this really is where you say, based on who I am, what I've done, this is really what I want to do. So again, it's not in a vacuum. They see it. And remember, each one of the other essays is going to kind of feed into this. It's a perspectives essay, personal history essay. It will all kind of feed into this core essay, which is the most important essay. Once you've teased out what it is you want to do, and you want to make sure that you're talking about immediate, medium, and long-term ultimate career goals, not just what are you going to do after HKS. And you have to basically then, once you've outlined those three parts, beginning, middle, and end after Kennedy School, you want to then talk about, again, like we said, the Yoda, how is HKS going to help you get there? How is HKS going to help you get there? Okay. And I like to break this down into CLAP. Okay, which is community, location, academics, personal. Okay, which I prefer to write as academics, the most important, then community, then the location, and then whatever personal connection you have. So I'll quickly break it down. Academics is going to be like centers, concentrations, classes, professors, research opportunities, right? Community is going to be like different campus organizations, different things on the Harvard campus in general, right? Location, talking about being in Boston and the opportunities that you get there, being in America if you're an international student, and the opportunities that you get there, right? Then the personal is going to be like, I took this class, I audited this class, I know this student, I've done my research, like something that ties you directly connected to the Kennedy School, so that they can see that you've gone above and beyond to really showcase why you are a great fit to that school. Okay, guys, the most important question probably by far on the whole application, because if you don't nail this and you're all over the place, you're not going to succeed. Anna has another question for us, which is, what is the best way to differentiate this essay from your resume and statement of purpose, career goals essay? How much background information is necessary? So to differentiate it, your resume is your catch-all. We're going to discuss that in 2 webinars from now about everything that you've done. So even if you don't have it in here, it's a catch-all. You'll be able to still grab it there. How do you distinguish it from the statement of purpose or career goals essay? This is the career goals essay and statement of purpose essay. This is going to be the closest you're really going to get almost to a personal statement essay, which is why I gave you guys that story arc, because it fits really well here. Because as you guys are seeing, A, B, C, D, E, right? The only thing I left out was F finale, because you're going to run out of space. Okay. How much background information is necessary? That, Anna, critical question, because you've already talked a bit about your background in the professional contribution. You've already talked about your background in your personal history essay. You've alluded to different parts of your background in the perspectives essay, possibly in the diversity essay already in your resume. So you don't want to put a ton in here. As I said, about 30% of your essay is going to be in here. About 35% is going to be here. And then the rest of the 35%, I think that's the math. Yep, that's the math, will be in here. Okay, because just based on that 5 components of what I underlined, those are the main things that you really want to go. Okay, let's jump ahead to a couple of things. Story success. You remember that was the last part of the story structuring process, or the story crafting process. Here are a couple of things I want you to think about in the last couple of minutes that we have. The hook. How strong is it? How does it pull them in? What is the most memorable part of the essay? Is there a strong theme, or is there too many themes? Is it responsive to the question that's being asked? Is it structured well? All right. Or is it just a bunch of things thrown everywhere? Is there a strong emotional connection? That's the authenticity. If I can delete your name and write my name and it still works as an essay, it's not personal enough. It's not connected enough to you. Okay. Is there creativity? Are you being bold and brave in what you write? Or are you just sitting there just typing blah, blah, blah information that's cut and dry, which will bore them to death when they've got to read thousands of these? Did you put examples, right? Did you color your experiences with examples, right? Especially like the professional contribution. You can't just talk about it at a 50,000 foot level. You've got to get granular and mention people's names. You can obviously use aliases, right? Detail, critical. Think about the 5 senses, your 3 S's and your 2 T's, touch, taste, and then your 3 S's, smell, sound, and sight, right? You want to put those details into motion to really encapsulate your essay and engage them as if it's almost like a virtual reality experience where they walk into your life. Making sure that it's accurate and you're not putting false information in there, and it's relevant to who you are, to your overarching profile, right? It's not just random details that you're throwing in, like we said, like 10 professional contributions, but it's relevant to who you are and the direction of where you want to go. Okay, that's your winning checklist. How should you begin? You start with ideating. We already did that brain dump. right? We did that exercise in the beginning. Then you start outlining, and you can start outlining using these things, A, B, C, D, or A, B, C, L, C, or in this case, sorry, man, it's freaking arrow. A, B, C, there it is, A, B, C, D, E, right? So you can break it down that way, right? With paragraph headers, A, B, C, D, E, and then flesh out each one of those with the bullet points that you got from the ideations. Then you take those bullet points, you start forming sentences and paragraphs, and you refine those paragraphs, and then you check for the perfecting stage, which is flow, syntax, responsiveness, uniqueness, so that we really ace everything that we talked about here. Okay? I do say get a second opinion, 2 to 3 people, someone who knows you well, someone knows the admissions process well, and somebody who's a damn good writer. Good news, that's what we do at Right Track. We're not going to be your mentor per se, but we're going to literally be your guide, because we're going to know you almost better than you know yourself, because we'll know your profile by doing all these kind of in-depth discussions with you. We obviously know the admissions process really well, and obviously we're great writers to have gotten us to where we are. Okay? Finally, I just want to say, working with AI, HKS's policy, all essays must be truthful and based on authentic firsthand experiences without the use of generative AI. It comes straight from the HKS blog. I don't think it's changed. Okay? So I tell you guys, use AI for researching and ideating. Do not use AI for drafting or editing. And the way that they're going to find out about this is using programs like GPT-0. Well, they will find out if you've used it, and they will ding you or not even review your application. So very, very important in terms of something to keep in mind. All right, guys? Finally, who we are. Amazing team of experts. Some of them have been to the Kennedy School. Some of them are PhDs. Some of them are just phenomenal individuals. They've helped many people with the applications get into top programs. In fact, I will show you how that is the case. We worked with a cohort of students where we brought the number from that specific cohort from 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3 over the last 10 years to 10 in 1 year, because we knew exactly how to really help them. And as you can see from one of the people that were part of the cohort, some of the key things I want to highlight: transition from a lack of clarity on my admissions requirements to laser focus. My confidence grew. We unearthed details, cathartic and transformative. And that's exactly what this is. It's a cathartic and incredible process. I love doing it because it actually allowed me to synthesize certain details and map it out and take stock of who I am and what I really want to achieve in the future. All right. Special time offer, guys. If you are the first to email us, we'll not only give you a free copy of the guidebook, but we'll also give you a free consultation with yours truly, so I can talk to you a little bit more about your profile, the details of any gaps, and kind of give you a little bit of guidance on the application process. Guys, our next webinar is on the 16th of October. We're going to be talking about acing adversity, perspectives, and personal history essays. And then we'll do another webinar on the 23rd, and likely the last one on the 30th, okay? If you guys want to give us a buzz or email us, you can, info@righttrackadmissions.com. Also, just quickly, I wanted to show you guys the guidebook. You can, as I said, you can get it over here. The Kennedy School, just go to Right Track Admissions /Kennedy School, and you can see there the guidebook. You can see like the chapters of it, previews of what the guidebook has, right? A little video of us talking about it. The pain points people go through, common questions that people ask the team. A video I created a couple of years back when I was going for my alumni reunion, so you can get tips from people that were in my class. Some other videos that we've created, the different ways that we actually will help you with your journey, breaking down the application, what you need to know, right? The success of what we've been able to achieve, some featured vlogs, and the clock is ticking, my friends. 52 days, 15 hours, 51 minutes, and 20 seconds until the admission is due. Guys, I took up a lot of time. If you have any questions for us, please feel free to email us. Otherwise, we're at time, we're at the clock, we're at 30 minutes. Always love doing these things, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week to get you on the right track to success.